As we know from research, hogs can get into an area and it's almost impossible to eradicate them.
Wild pig numbers have been increasing across the United States and North America for pretty much the last 20 to 40 years.
1 in every 4 acorns that falls on the ground and is ready for an animal to eat, a wild pig will come consume it.
In this week's episode of Deer and Deer Hunting, we're going to switch it up a little bit and we're going to talk about hogs and hog hunting. What does that have to do with whitetails? A lot more than you think. Stay tuned.
This is where it all begins.
My best hunting day ever. This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV. So if we're going to talk about feral hog populations in America, we have to go to the experts. And for us, that means going to the Auburn University Deer Lab, where they're doing a 5-year study on the feral hog's impact on white-tailed deer. Led by Dr. Stephen Ditchkoff and his grad students, they're coming up with some fascinating findings.
I'm Dr. Steve Ditchkoff. I'm professor of wildlife ecology at Auburn University in the School of Forestry and Wildlife Sciences. I'm involved with research with large mammals and specifically focus my research on white-tailed deer and wild pigs. Wild pigs have a lot of negative impacts on the landscape. They have negative impacts and primarily because of their propensity to root for forage underneath the soil surface, going after insects and grubs or whether it be roots and tubers. They move a lot of soil, cause a lot of damage to the landscape. This leads to erosion, sedimentation in streams, that sort of thing. Their rooting tends to, create niches for invasive exotic plants. They also have a lot of negative impacts on wildlife species, ground nesting birds, quail, turkeys, that sort of thing. We know they cause problems. Sea turtle nests, they are extremely destructive to sea turtle nests. We have found wild pigs actually eating white-tailed deer fawns alive. We know that there's a lot of impacts. We're just really scratching the surface and understanding how detrimental they are to wildlife and plant species here in North America.
At Auburn University, the students are the ones leading the way by developing techniques and observation methods to collect the data they need to complete their studies. With the support and guidance of our instructors, Ariel Fay is an undergraduate who has taken on the challenge of better understanding the amount of food resources that wild hogs consume over their competition.
My research is looking at the impacts of wild pigs on the environment and specifically how their consumption rates may be impacting negatively other wildlife species, particularly white-tailed deer. To collect our data, we have established 40 different camera monitoring sites on our study area. And at each of these sites, we have placed 5 acorns that are monitored by a game camera. And we monitor each of these acorns to see what species come to consume them. And from our research, we can see how many pigs are coming, how many acorns pigs are eating compared to other wildlife species such as turkeys, deer, raccoons, squirrels, stuff like that. So we had year 1 of data collection in which we monitored everything with pigs on the landscape. And then through last summer, we came and are still continuing to trap and remove pigs from the landscape. So we can see before when pigs are here and after when pigs are no longer here, if species consumption rates are shifting from maybe less wild pigs to more deer or other native wildlife species.
Yeah, this will run, taking a picture every minute for as long as the batteries will go, around 2 weeks, 13 days to 14 days. We also have some buckets here. These are our acorn traps that we use to monitor when acorns are falling. This mesh is to keep other critters from coming in and taking acorns out of the buckets, and every time we come to a site we collect all the acorns that have fallen in the buckets and clean them out of debris, and that'll give us an idea of when acorns are falling across the landscape.
In our first year of data collection, we found that out of all the acorns that were consumed, wild pigs consumed about 25%. So 1 in every 4 acorns that falls on the ground and is ready for an animal to eat, a wild pig will come consume it. Deer only have 3 to choose from now.
Hunting actually can hurt the effects of trying to get rid of hog populations, and here's why.
This segment of Deer and Deer Hunting TV is brought to you by Hunt Stand. Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Cuddyback. CuddyLink, 16 cameras, 1 cell plan, $10 per month. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Get armed and deadly with Easton FMJ arrows. And by Scent Killer Gold with Hunt Dry Technology Plus. Apply it, dry it, and go hunt. Learning how wild hogs impact other wildlife species is important. Learning how to effectively eradicate wild hogs from an area, now that's something most landowners can take straight to the bank.
So from a hunting perspective, you think, oh, hunting is good. You know, hunting will help reduce hog populations. Not really. Hunting actually can hurt the effects of trying to get rid of hog populations, and here's why. It's the same thing with a trapping effort gone bad. Wild hogs are extremely smart animals. In the trapping instance, let's say they're going in and they're trapping 50 or 60% of those hogs. Those hogs that don't get in the traps, they're live traps that come down like big box traps. The hogs that aren't trapped become so incredibly smart that they become trap resistance, they call it. Hunting, same thing. If you're just going out and hunting hogs, thinking that you're going to try to control those populations, hogs are smarter than deer when it comes to surviving. They're going to learn how to survive, and the ones that do learn how to survive are going to be so smart, you're not going to be able to hunt them and kill them. Their noses are unbelievable.
Here at Auburn, a couple of years ago, had some former students develop a trapping strategy called whole sounder removal. Whole sounder removal is a 5-step process that we've shown to be effective for eliminating wild pigs. In one study, we effectively eliminated wild pigs on 20,000 acres. The 5 steps in that process are to, number 1, go out and survey the population. What we do is we go out and we establish bait piles about every 400 acres. We establish those bait piles on sites that have sign of wild pig. We'll put a camera on that site, and so we'll survey that 5, 10, 20,000 acres with bait piles to figure out where we have wild pigs and where we don't. And we will identify individual sounders. The sounder is the social group in wild pigs of related females and their young. They move around together as a group, and so we identify those social groups. Once we have those social groups identified, then we identify the individuals in that group. Group A might have 7 adult females and 4 offspring, and the next group is going to have a different composition. So now we know where we're trapping and what we're targeting. The third step is to build a trap at those sites, but the most important part of building the trap is to acclimate those pigs to the trap. Wild pigs are extremely intelligent, and we don't want to catch half the sounder and educate the other half. And so what we do is we'll build that trap, we will tie it open, we will monitor that trap with the camera, and we will not even think about setting a trigger until all of those pigs are actively going in the trap. That way, when we target a sounder, we catch them all, not just 10%, 50%, 75% of the sounder. We do not want to educate any pigs. So our 4th step in that is to actually trap the pigs, and the 5th is to monitor afterwards. Was there a female from that group that was out farrowing or giving birth? Is there another group that moves into the area? So we do want to have some bait piles with cameras maintained after we've eliminated pigs to make sure that we don't have any individuals that are moving around.
All right, my name's Steven Zenas. I'm a research associate in the School of Forestry and Wildlife Science. So I'm primarily looking at the efficacy and efficiency of pig removal efforts. So last night we used the camera trap to drop the door on 5 pigs, and they're all fairly sizable pigs from what we can tell. It looked like one of them might have been nursing in the past, and so it'd be a good one to remove from the population. So the heart blood is what we do first. It's the most time sensitive of all of the samples, because if the blood coagulates, it can be really difficult to draw blood. So we start with that. We then move on to probably one of the more time-consuming tests, which is the fungal swabs around the snouts. The process of taking it doesn't take too much time, but the sanitation of changing gloves after every swab really adds up. After that, we have to pull the kidneys and spleens from each of these pigs, and we'll put them in the bags to go with the heart blood. For our purposes on this project, we're mainly interested in the removal of the pigs. The data collection is, we don't have much data collection beyond age and sex for each of these pigs. It's all trying to help other folks out in the university, and you know, they go out of their way to help us with supplies and all that stuff. So it's kind of a scratch each other's back situation where we can hopefully get a lot of good research out for the university.
This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV. Or is it?
When you're hunting hogs, if you're hunting them with a bow and arrow or a crossbow, you have to learn hog anatomy. It's different than a deer.
This segment of Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Outdoor Edge. This segment of Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Redneck Blinds. It's safe to say that Dan Schmidt, the editor-in-chief of Deer and Deer Hunting magazine, probably counts white-tailed deer in his sleep. So when he gets invited down to South Carolina for an early season hunt with Blackwater Hunting Services, his dreams start to fill with images of velvet-covered brow tines and split G2s. Instead, he quickly finds himself surrounded by a plethora of wild South Carolina hogs. Don't worry, he'll shoot those too.
Hunting hogs, don't get me wrong, is a lot of fun, especially with the bow and arrow. I'm not there with the bow and arrow this time. I'm not messing around. I'm going with my rifle. It's a Model 7. I got precision hunter ammo. I'm loaded for bear, so to speak, or loaded for hogs. But when you're hunting hogs, if you're hunting them with a bow and arrow or a crossbow, you have to learn hog anatomy. It's different than a deer. Those vitals are farther forward. It's a tough critter to kill because those vitals are kind of hidden by what they call a shield. It's basically an extended scapula, a big piece of cartilage that extends past the scapula and almost covers the heart depending upon how that hog's leg is when you shoot him. With a rifle, there's no messing around. You're not going for the lungs or the heart. You're trying to kill him on the spot because that's what you want to do. And a high shoulder shot works, neck shot works, head shots work. I try not to do headshots because I want to be, you know, that high shoulder shot, just like a deer, it's going to drop them like that. Well, let me show you what happened here. So that's the nice thing about early season hunting for hogs. You shoot one, they're not quite educated yet. You just sit a little bit, they're gonna come back. Two hogs down, a lot of good meat on the ground right there. Unfortunately, it became dark too quick because we sure would have liked to have been there for another half an hour of daylight, maybe get one or two more. But that is an exciting hunt. It's an exciting way to spend, an August weekend. Oh, that's the first one. First one. Tell you what, that is an exciting afternoon to end the hunt. Two nice hogs, some great meat, and some great memories from South Carolina. Blackwater Hunting Services, just a really classic hunting camp in the heart of the South with a lot of opportunities.
Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Sever Broadheads, straight through it. 10-Point Crossbow Technologies, there is no substitute. And by Outdoor Edge, make the cut. This segment of Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Matthews.
Let your trail camera be your extra eyes when you can't be at that other stand. Now, you might have your trail camera set up on a food plot or a field edge, really watching those big deer movement areas. But once hunting season starts, adjust and move these to your hunting spots that you're not at that particular time. That way, if that hot spot that you're sitting on suddenly goes dead, you can check your trail cameras and see if those other spots suddenly are lit up or turned on. Now with the Cuddy Link system, it will daisy chain together without cellular service up to 15 units as long as you don't separate them by a quarter mile. All those images, they'll come back to the home unit. You can check one unit easily. Another thing a lot of hunters overlook is the fact that they don't monitor access sites and points to their hunting property. Set up at least one or two of your cameras at gates, trails, anywhere someone might come in. That way you'll know if there's any sneaky activity going on your property or just simply a landowner moving cattle or something that may screw up that afternoon hunt. Knowing those little details can put you in the driver's seat for success this fall.
All right, let's check this out. Let's see if we have clearance. We do, and what about this window right here? Yes, we do. Those are two of the biggest things when you're bow hunting out of a ground blind is making sure you have clearance when you come to full draw in the blind so your elbow is not hitting, one of the other windows or one of the walls, and that you have clearance through the windows. One of the biggest questions we get is, should I use that shoot-through screen that these blinds come with? Should I shoot my broadheads through it? I shoot these Sever mechanicals. Now, I could shoot through these windows, and I have done it, but I always recommend, it doesn't matter if you're shooting an expandable broadhead or fixed blade broadhead, I say don't use that mesh. Don't shoot through that mesh. What I'm going to do when I set up my blind is I'm going to pick 1 or 2 spots that hopefully I'm going to get a shot out of, and I'm going to take those screens down. Now, there have been cases when a deer shows up and it's in one of the other windows, I'll try to make sure that that screen is easily accessible, that I can get it down without spooking the deer. The reason I don't like shooting through the mesh, way back 20 years ago, I always said, no, you can do that, it's not a problem. It usually wasn't a problem, but I've had enough encounters where it was a problem, and you don't want that one case to be that buck of a lifetime. So that's why I always suggest, doesn't matter if you're shooting a fixed blade broadhead or an expandable, take that mesh down, and hopefully you won't have a bad experience like I've had.
Hi, I'm Dan Schmidt. For more tips, strategies, and hunting action, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV.